And so it looks like they're doing nothing. In fact, Harrison Ford doesn't have a reputation as one of our great actors, does he? Because people think, hey, he's not acting, he's just being himself. Well, he is so shy that if he were being himself, all you would ever see is his back as he goes off in the corner and avoids the camera. He is a really shy, quiet, private person. He's not being himself, that charming, witty guy. That's a persona. It's a character he plays. But he plays it so well you think it's himself. That's actually way better than when you know they're acting. Anytime you're really impressed with an actor's performance, chances are he did a bad job. He's showing off. And if you don't even notice the actor's performance, but instead you feel like you've seen a person, that's acting. And that's what Harrison Ford does. You don't win Oscars doing that, but you do have audiences who love you and think they know you, though what they really know is the character you play. But what was fun was watching Harrison with Asa. You know, Asa's talented, but he's young. And that's one of the problems with working with child actors. It's one of the things that's delayed Ender's Game for so long is child actors are generally speaking untrained. And they don't know what they're doing. They need a lot of guidance. They can only work half a day by law. And so your filming stretches. Well, every day of filming is $1 million. So your budget just goes through the roof. But when you got Harrison Ford working with this young actor, they went through the scene. The scene is just very quiet, just the two of them sitting in chairs talking. There's one time when Harrison looks over at him, and one time when Asa looks over at Harrison. There's one time when Harrison reaches out and touches Asa's forearm. Asa looks at the forearm. Harrison pulls his hand back. That's the entire physical motion of the scene. But it's when you do it. And it's how long it takes before you then speak. And it's how long the look lingers before the hand moves. And I mean, those timing things shape the scene. So that when you're watching it, you don't sit here going, that was a long hold. Interesting. Well, you do notice, there's one time when you notice how long the hold is. When you're watching two actors sitting in the front of a car, one of them is driving, having a conversation while moving, supposedly. The one driving takes a long, lingering look. And doesn't that make you insane? Don't you want to say, look forward? Because I don't know about you, I have complete conversations in the car, sometimes quite passionate, emotional conversations, without once looking at the person beside me, because I don't want to die. But no, actors know that they're long, lingering looks. That's the real emoting. No, it's not. It makes audiences crazy. But anyway, I was somewhere on that. I do these digressions, and then you have to forgive me because I lose track of what I digress from. When I'm inside my third set of parentheses, I lose track of further parentheses. I do that when I'm writing too, but that's what editors are for. Anyway, the film, I am very hopeful it's going to be terrific. I was talking about the timing. So anyway, it's about what Harrison told me afterward. He said, each of those takes, we timed it a little differently, so that in the editing room they have a lot of options. So that they can shape it so the climax is here, or here, or here, depending on what they want the main point of the scene to be. So that's just one of the cool things. He understands how it's done, and he was kind of, every now and then he just murmurs something to Asa, even more quietly than they're talking for the mic. And then they do it a little differently the next time. And one time he asked me, give me just a little bit longer before you speak. That's all it took. And so you'll never know it's me. Well, you will, because I just told you. It doesn't matter that it's me, but it was really fun for me to be there in the room, to get a chance to talk to them. I met the other kids. These kids suffered for their parts, I'll tell you. They did wire work. The problem with CGI for the battle room is nobody solved the walking problem or the collision problem. When you're animating and people run into a wall, fall down, but even just simple walking, it always looks false. Notice in good animated movies, when somebody's walking, they often don't show the feet. It's just framed above the feet. Because the feet always look like you're kind of walking on ice and it's sliding a little bit somehow. It just never looks real. Even when they do motion capture, something is always wrong. It just doesn't look real. And I talk about this with animators and they say, we have no idea. We don't know why it doesn't work. But the eye does not believe that stuff. And collisions, in the battle room, it's all about hitting the wall and rebounding. And for one thing, the first things I saw, they didn't even understand physics. The first demonstration I saw, they had guys, pushing off and flying, and then they would skim under something and skip against it and then keep going. No, no, because friction slows down the upper part of your body, then you tumble because the other part is moving faster, and you turn around, and besides breaking your neck, you're then rolling, you're spinning, and you're going off in a different direction. But they didn't understand. Cars bounce off other cars because they have wheels, tires on the ground. Gravity is holding them down. When you don't have any gravity, no, any collision is a disaster. And so mistakes like that, physics mistakes, really bother me, because the animation guys, their software should have been smarter than that. But that's, they're not used to zero G. And so, but that was early stuff. They don't make mistakes like that. But the reason they did wire work because they knew they could. They had a frame for the actors, a circle. It's used by gymnasts for training. What it is a wheel within a wheel with ball bearings between it. The cables are attached to the outside wheel. Then the inside wheel is attached to your body on a belt. And so you can spin completely inside the cable. So you're complete free-form rotation. Then you can also rotate in several directions while you're there. The real problem is that when you're doing wire work, as in Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, whatever it is, did I get that title right? I can never remember which one's crouching and which one's hidden. But anyway, you always knew where down was, which is fine. You were supposed to. They weren't supposed to be in zero G. But that's because when your body drifts, what happens to your heart? They fall. Everything falls. When you're relaxed, when you're not thinking about it. Well, you can't do that in the battle room. So they got Cirque du Soleil performers, and they had them work on having your hand continue drifting in whatever motion started drifting in until you reach the limit of your own body structure, and then it rebounds a little. And they worked on it, and they do the distance shots. They do stunt work, but then they trained the kids. And it doesn't matter if you're Asa Butterfield and your name's above the title, or if you're the lowest flunky in the battle room. Everybody had to do the same physical work. And what they told me is these kids ended their 4 hours a day of training. Well, let's put it this way, it was way worse than anything that the actors had to do for Oliver Stone's Platoon, which got all this publicity about how they suffered in the jungle, trained to be soldiers. No, these kids were in agony. Human bodies are not meant to move that way. And they moved in directions they're not supposed to move, but these kids were in the best shape of their lives. Somebody suggested to me that maybe I should have come and done it. There's no wire that I would trust to hold me, A, and B, no. That's the nice thing about being the writer is I don't have to wear a suit to the meetings, and I don't have to do any stunts. So if I wanted to do stunts, I would have been in a different line of work. Anyway, here's the thing about the movie. It's going to be different from the book. It has to be. Couldn't be filmed the way it was, the way the book is. And so what I'm hoping is it's brilliant. I would love it if Gavin's script was really good. Now, I did a really good script that I was very proud of, but you can lose your job greenlighting a film scripted by the author of the novel. That's just the truth. And you can't lose your job over greenlighting the film scripted by the director. So they went with the one where nobody loses their job, whether it wins or loses. So, it may be that I'll go and say, my script was better. Maybe I'll go and say, wow, Gavin was right. He really nailed it. I have no idea because I've never made a movie. What I'm hoping, though, is that you guys will come, because nobody will touch any other project of mine. I have so many projects that would make much better movies. They're all, Enchantment is meant to be a movie. We have an Alvin Maker film that is going to be wonderful if we could get it funded. But no one will fund anything until they see how Ender's Game does.
Go to Disney. They bought everything.
They only buy things that are proven. So I'm an unproven entity. So here's what I'm saying. Go once.
Yeah.
Go. See it. If you love it, great. Come back and bring your friends. If you hate it, come and bring your friends and tell them how terrible it was. And show them, hey, see how bad. If this film doesn't make money, I don't get to make any other movies. So please do give it a shot. I think it's going to be good. I really do. The cast is fantastic. I didn't even get to meet Ben Kingsley, but I think he's going to be wonderful as Mazer Rackham, even though, I don't know, he doesn't look Maori to me. Because half Maoris I've known tend to be kind of big guys. But he can bring off anything. So we'll believe in, look, if in 50 First Dates we can believe that, what's his name, Adam Sandler's friend,
Rob Schneider.
Yeah, Rob Schneider. If we can believe that he is a native Hawaiian, we can believe it. And I didn't believe he was a native Hawaiian, but nevertheless, you know, I think it is 1/3 of a brilliant movie. So the other 2/3 are tolerable, and that's why I rewatch it. Anyway, that's kind of everything that I know about the movie. Does anybody have any civilian questions now? Just whatever's on your mind. Actually, I'm here because of the book Ruins, which is book 2 in the first genuine young adult series I've ever written. It's a trilogy. It will definitely end in the 3rd book. This is not open-ended. It will end. I know the ending. It's not growing beyond control. So this is the middle book. But as with Star Wars, I think maybe the middle book will end up being the best. But I have no Ewoks in the 3rd. I'm just telling you. It doesn't end with a sock hop, and Darth Vader is not redeemed merely because he decided not to kill his own son. You know, to me, that is not grounds for redemption. But anyway, Ruins is just continuing along the path of finding, the path, right? It wasn't England, but I'm looking at Pathfinder, and so I'm sure that's why it came into my mind. It just confuses me, these titles. But it continues with, what is kind of amazing to me is that there are a lot of kids who really like the long, deep metaphysical discussions in Pathfinder. Those continue, but I like to think that what I did was I turned metaphysical discussions into action. Because when they're having these metaphysical discussions, it's because they're trying to figure out whether the thing they're trying to do will actually work. And so it's practical. It's like designing the internal combustion engine when you don't know whether it will combust or stay internal. Anyway, so I'm hoping that you'll like Ruins, but that's what I'm officially here for. But actually, you know, obviously I'm going to sign anything I wrote. So anybody have any questions? Yes.
I read Ender's Game when I was 17 back in the 80s.
And you have gray hair now. Thank you for aging me so.
I found it very profound, but the thing that really grasped me is that in it you talk about the internet, you talk about laptops, wireless internet, chat rooms and iPads, and making your identity online. What gave you the insight? I mean, you're talking 10 plus years.
You got to remember, the copyright date, the earliest copyright date is 1977, and if I had truly thought of all those things in 77, then I would give myself credit for being really smart and clever. But 77 was the short story, and none of that stuff's in the short story. The novel, by 1985, while the internet was not open for public access yet, there were services like CompuServe and Delphi. I had been on bulletin boards. I knew about flame wars. I mean, there was all kinds of stuff like that. I really did a better job of being prescient in my Worthing Saga stories, because back in the 70s, I was having online games that spectators were watching. So I feel like I did do some prescient stuff. It just isn't an Ender's Game. It's like when Bruce Sterling was dealing. It was something about. Oh, I can't remember the title now. But he was talking about what will happen when everybody has a picture phone. And then he had people wearing special makeup for picture phone. That makes perfect sense. But then he also had phone flashers. And I just go, of course, the ultimate, you know, way for flashers to get their jollies, and you know, I thought, why didn't I think of that? Well, I'm just not as evil-minded as Bruce. So, actually, I'm actually worse, but he happened to think of that one. But you know, you try to think of everything, but you miss stuff. So it's nice when you give me credit for the stuff I get right, and thank you for overlooking the stuff I miss completely. But we're not in the prediction game, we're in the extrapolation game. So if this happens, and it's not that hard to guess the trends, then what would it do to society? And any science fiction writer with this salt becomes pretty good at coming up with at least some stuff. The secret, though, is a lot of science fiction writers haven't studied the things they really need to study. They study science, but they don't study politics and history and sociology and there's so much stuff that they get completely wrong because they've kind of been narrow. So I always tell my writing students, you got to know everything about everything. You never get there, but you got to be trying. And then it makes your work feel real at every level.
So
anyway.
Thank you for character viewpoints. That was great.
Oh, good. I'm glad you liked that. So I'm talking to a fellow writer then. That's cool. There's a hand back there. Yes.